Hey, everybody, and welcome to a special episode of The Performance Zone, an interview show hosted by me, Coach Clay Banks. And in PZTV, I deconstruct industry professionals to find out more about them and what makes them tick so that you can gain more of a competitive edge for yourself. Now, today we have a super special episode for you because we have a super special, true, original rock star. Now, I know we call a lot of people rock stars. We go, hey, dude, you're a rock star. But this is a true, one of the top rock stars of all times. 40 years behind him of doing this professionally. My guest is Kenny Aronoff, and I'm going to tell you just a little bit about him to set it up, and then we're going to welcome Kenny in. Now, I normally don't use notes if you follow the show. But for Kenny, I need notes because there's so much that this guy has accomplished. I can't pack it in my brain. So let me just tell you a little bit about Kenny because there's a lot, and then Kenny's going to go ahead and fill in the gaps for me. Kenny has been voted one of the top 100 drummers of all times by Rock and Roll Magazine. Kenny has worked with guys like John Cougar Mellencamp for 17 years as his key drummer. Sir Paul McCartney, we're talking Ringo Starr, the Rolling Stones, Lady Gaga, Bruno Mars, Willie Nelson, John Bon Jovi, B.B. King, Meatloaf, Smashing Pumpkins. I mean, the list literally goes on. I can fill the whole show with his credits. Now, Drummer Magazine has crowned Kenny Aronoff as the number one, not one of the top, but the number one pop rock drummers and number one studio drummers of all times. And that's key on what Kenny does do. But Kenny has not only reached over 300 million worldwide in record sales, his work has been featured all over the world. He's been part of 1,300 certified gold, platinum, and diamond records. I mean, my gosh, that is unbelievable. And not just that. He's not just a studio and traveling muso. Kenny also is a keynote speaker and an author. I mean, what hasn't this guy done? Also, on the really cool side, and what I'm going to dig into even more, is Kenny's an empowerment speaker, and he teaches people how to embrace adversity and to gain confidence in their own personal lives. I can't wait to hear more about that. One of the hardest hitting people in the music industry, Mr. Kenny Aronoff. Kenny, welcome to the show.
That's a great intro, bro.
Gosh, dude, it's so great to finally get you in here.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Cool. Thanks for coming in. So, Kenny, listen, I mean, we're going to open this up. We're going to let it fly. I want to kind of jump into some of the key things. I understood that you got started in music because you were watching the Ed Sullivan Show. You got inspired with the Beatles. What happened here?
Well, I grew up in Western Mass. There was nothing to watch on TV. And so me and my brother were always outside playing. And my mom one day yelled at us to come inside. So I thought I was in trouble. We run across this big lawn we had, and I come into the family with my head's down like, uh-oh, what did I do? And she's pointing to this black and white RCA TV set with the rabbit ears and tinfoil to get the reception. Remember, you guys, there was no video games, computers, cell
There were
phones.
like 3 channels, right?
Yeah, and it was horrible because we were in the mountains of Western Mass. Anyway, she's pointing at the TV, and there's these guys with long hair and suit jackets, and they look cool. And then they broke into the rock and roll. Now, I'd never heard rock and roll before. Not like that. Maybe I'd heard Little Richard on the radio. But anyway, I was blown away. I was electrified. And back then, I didn't realize this, but I go back and connect the dots. That was the moment. I was so electrified and blown away. I knew I wanted to be part of it. I realized that was my purpose in life before I even knew what those words meant.
Had you played any music before that?
Well, my mom would teach each one of us kids. I had a sister too, and we'd learn a song on piano. I took piano lessons. I was taking piano lessons, but it wasn't my thing. I was into energy, and I saw Ringo up there on the, I want to do that, So I told my mom, I said, forget about piano lessons. I want to be in the Beatles. You got to call them up, and I want a drum set. And
Call up the Beatles, Mom.
well, yeah, when you're 10, that's what you say.
I love
Make
the
it happen. So she didn't. So I started my own band called the Alley Cats. And I could only afford, I had to borrow $20. I got a snare drum and a cymbal. I stood up. And every Sunday I'd rehearse with the Alley Cats, and we did Beatles songs.
Okay, so let me ask you, because this is important for the viewers. You were inspired by music, and you gravitated naturally towards the percussions? Is that?
Yeah, look at, I explain this to people. I was drawn to sports. I was a 3-letterman varsity jock by the time I was a sophomore in high school. Varsity on every sport I was on. I was drawn to energy and adrenaline. I realize now, this year I realized I was addicted to, the dopamine and serotonin, the adrenaline, the
Right.
excitement. I was my own drug. I was drawn to energy. It made me, it fired me up. And like a Marvel superhero. So drums was a natural in a band, was the natural instrument. And what happened was I was so crazy and so into it, people would look at me. My brother explained this to me recently, look at me like, whoa. And so I would motivate the other people. And when I could see I was making them feel good, it made me feel even better.
Right.
And then think about being in a band and making an audience feel good, then that would motivate me. And it's just, toward relations I had with the audience, with the band, back and forth. So it was the perfect fit for me.
Now, was it a natural progression? You started a band, you gathered some guys and said, let's just start making music. And then were you gigging out?
Okay, so yeah, we believe it or not, the Alley Cats got a gig. The first time we got a gig was the mom of the piano player was part of the Grange meeting, and then in a small little New England town of 3,000 people, the Grange meeting was these elderlies that would get together and they would just discuss the town and how to keep it preserved, whatever they want, and whatever they wanted to talk about. But Mrs. Sauer said, do you want some entertainment? My boy has a band. It's a rock and roll band. And went, rock and roll? You mean we get to see that in person? So my mom gets a phone call and she says, Kenny, if you want to play in about an hour. So we put my little snare drum cymbal in the car, drove down there, and we played our 5 songs for these elderlies. And they were up dancing, and I shut my eyes and thought I was in the Beatles. And then they said, do you have any more songs? And we didn't, so we just did them again. And that was...
Here's the set again.
Yeah, that was the beginning of... the incredible thing about this story, though, is, 50 years, and I don't know if you're going to bring this up, but 50 years after I saw the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show, I'm in town here, and I get a call to be the drummer on a CBS special called The Night That Changed America, where we're going to honor the Beatles for that Ed Sullivan Show. And I get to play with the 2 remaining Beatles, Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr.
Came full circle.
50 years later.
Look at that.
Now, what happened in between is what is the most important thing.
All right, we're going to get to that, but I want to drill in on something. Now, you're what? Are you guys teenagers with the Alley Cats?
No, I was 10.
You were 10. Okay, even better. So you're 10 years old. How did you organize these remnant dudes, these kids, to come together and actually make the music work?
Well, the guy, John Sauer, he was 1 year older. Actually, everybody was 1 year older. I was in like 5th grade or something, or whatever it was, and they were 1 year older, maybe 4th grade. John Sauer's mom probably, or John and I would talk on the phone. That's it, because we went to school together. And we says, we want to do this. So I talked to my mom, they talked to their mom, and my mom would drop me over there on a Sunday for the day. And we would, we'd play outside some football. We'd play some HO racing cars. I remember John had that. And then we get down to business. And John would teach us the song. He had perfect pitch. He was the super gifted in the band. So he would teach us. We had a bass player, a guitar player, John on piano, and me on snare drum and cymbal. And I can't remember if people would tell me what to play or if I just picked it up, but we'd listen to the records and we'd mimic it. And I was always trying to feel and sound like what the Beatles sounded like. When A Hard Day's Night came out.
Right.
And we saw that in the theater. Oh my God, it was like unbelievable. And that theater, by the way, the Mahawi Theater in Great Barrington, beautiful old theater in Great Barrington, Massachusetts, 3 miles from where I grew up.
Up in the Berkshires.
Yeah, that's where I grew up. So all these I grew up in Stockbridge, with Arlo Guthrie and Norman Rockwell. I used to go to his house and sneak cigarettes from his thing to give to my friend because his brother smoked. I just wanted to be in and cool.
Right.
But the point is that I saw A Hard Day's Night at the Mahawi Theater. It was on the marquee. We went there. Well, about 5 years ago, I spoke at the Mahawi Theater, an evening with Kenny Aronoff. You're not going to believe it. On the marquee was A Hard Day's Night, October 5th. Kenny Aronoff will speak on October 8th. I'm on this. My name is on the marquee with A Hard Day's Night.
Look at that.
like a billion years later. A billion.
It came back around. Hey, do you have any of that music from when you were with the Alley Cats?
Nah.
Nothing
No,
recorded?
wait. I have a picture. I have a picture. So when I do my keynote speaking, it pops up.
It'd be so neat to actually hear what you sounded like back then. Right?
That would be cool. But you know, I have some recordings. You know, I played through bands all through high school. Always the thing was back then in the music business when it was just starting to flourish, coming out of the jazz era. You know, you suddenly, you know, the Beatles came out. Nobody and Creedence. So I've played with John Fogerty for 27 years. You know, singer-songwriter, arranger of Creedence Clearwater. You know, up until then, people didn't really sell that many records. I mean, how many records can Miles Davis sell, except for maybe Kind of Blue, which was, you know, amazing. But all of a sudden, you know, Jerry Lee Lewis selling 1 million records, the Beatles selling 1 million records. So the business model was you get good on your instrument, you get with the best musicians, you write songs, you're going to get signed. And that was a realistic goal, even though very difficult to achieve. You know, this was all starting like I didn't even have drum. Nobody could teach me how to play rock and roll drums because it was new. It was brand new.
Right.
So I was self-taught. You know, and later on I got 5 years of classical training because there was no school of rock. But the point is, this was all just unraveling. All of a sudden, hey, there's this new band called Jimi Hendrix. 2 weeks later, it's the Cream. 2 weeks later, it's the Who. 2 weeks later, it's Jethro Tull.
Right.
2 weeks later, it's Santana. Whoa, Sly Stone. Whoa, James Brown. I mean, it was all over the place. Sabbath, Zeppelin, Crosby, Stills, and Nash. Dude, it doesn't exist anymore. Not like that. Those bands were like different planets. How can Pink Floyd sound like not even close to Santana?
Right.
A whole different atmosphere, a whole different uniqueness. That's because kids would get together and hang out and develop and research and learn from the other musicians and other styles of music, and their mind was open. Nobody was chasing after a hit single quite like they might now. They were trying to be unique. It was the beginning. This was the 60s. This was where the world went from black and white post-World War II to color. And so everything was like, be creative, invent. Don't do exactly. You got to do something new. I was lucky to be in that time.
Now, did your life start to revolve completely around your music? Did you kind of become a bit obsessive and focused in that it was all about music and what you were going to do?
Well, in high school, it went like this. You know, I was not a great student until my junior, senior year. Then I got straight A's. I finally put it all together. And it was school. I was very popular in school. I have a twin brother. He was like president, vice president.
You have a twin brother?
Identical, yeah.
How do I know I'm talking to Kenny?
You might not.
Does he play music?
But he wouldn't be wearing glasses like this. He's a doctor.
Yeah, he's a doctor.
He's strict. So, but we talk the same and we act the same. We both have energy. We were really, really popular. So school was fun, and then after school it was varsity sports. Come home, do homework, chemistry, advanced math, whatever, physics, English, history, and then Latin. Ugh, hated Latin. It's like why did I take Latin? I'm never going to speak to the Pope. Well, I should have spoke French. At least I could pick up some chicks. So I was into sports, music, and girls.
Well, there you go.
Well, dude, that's
now you had it right there, right?
Come on. All of it was high adrenaline, you know, supporting adrenaline, excitement. So and I had as you can tell, abundance of energy. You know, so nothing ever could slow me down. So we had a barn on our property. Like, you know, and real close to, you know, the house. So we had band practice in there. So I do, you know, school, sports, dinner, homework, and band practice would start at 8 at night, 9, whatever. Everybody would come. Our house was the place to hang. My parents were fine with that because they thought, well, at least they're home.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
At least they knew where we were.
Yep, they got an eyeball
And we
on you.
rocked 7 nights a week. I missed Woodstock because I had band practice. Woodstock was 2.5 hours from my house.
Right.
I went to my mom. I went, hey, Mom.
Wait, now how old were you when you asked your mom to go to Woodstock?
I think I might have been 15, 16.
Wow.
16, maybe. I said, Mom, I want to, let's see, wait, was that 1969?
Around there.
Yeah. So I was probably 16, 15 and 16. So I said, Mom, I want to go to this, and there were festivals popping up all over the place. I want to go to this place called Woodstock. She said, well, how are you getting there? Well, Sarah Cosby's going to drive. She's a bad driver. I hear she smokes that marijuana and drinks. I went, come on, Mom. Is we going to stay? I think we're camping out. Nah, I don't like it. I probably could have convinced her. But I went, well, I got band practice. Woodstock's Woodstock. I want to get in my own band, you know? And plus probably I had girls coming over or something. So I didn't go. And on Sunday, the New York Times, we'd get the Times every Sunday delivered to the house. And there it was. It says, a new city has been born in one day. And they had this massive picture, aerial shot of looked like 1 million people.
I think it was 1 million people.
And I went, I missed that.
Right.
Oh man, Hendrix was there. Creedence, all my heroes were there.
So let me take this back. You said I could ask you anything.
Oh yeah.
You said I could ask him
anything.
anything. Okay. What kind of home did you grow up in? Was it a conservative home, a religious home, or a loose home, a regular home? How was your home?
It was hip. It was hip. The doors were always open to anybody who wanted to come in.
What'd your dad do?
My dad was a businessman. He worked for a division of Kimberly-Clark, the paper business.
Right.
Through New England, there was a river called the Housatonic, and they had mills on the river, all the way from Vermont, New Hampshire, down into Massachusetts, into Connecticut. And my dad worked for Peter J. Schweitzer. He was a chemist and a research guy and a salesman.
Conservative?
No, very, very, very liberal, but the cool liberal, not the vicious liberals. This was like my dad was a true liberal. He would listen to what anybody had to say.
Was music playing in the house?
Always classical and jazz. They were New Yorkers.
How about mom? Was she house mom?
Mom, super liberal. She was a school teacher. Everything was open for discussion. Mom, very emotional, very dynamic, very opinionated. I get her energy. My dad was more of a listener and a thinker, always reading, have men's groups. My dad, mom, both acted. They got asked to act in these local plays. The town was of 3,000 people. Now let me paint a picture here. You walk out of this. In my town you had some wealthy people, but you had people who didn't, just normal people and lower, middle class incomes, but everybody got along. It was a true New England community.
Right.
I walked out. You couldn't see a house from my house because it was all in the country. You walk 8th of a Mile, Norman Mailer, one of the greatest writers. He was right there. And I used to go up and hang out with him because he had a daughter that was hot. And this guy, was one of the greatest prolific writers of all time. William Shirer, who wrote one of the
these
greatest.
These are big names.
Yeah, these are huge names. Right down. And then there was a guy called, I didn't even know it 2 years later, Reinhold Niebuhr, half a mile from my house. My brother used to do gardening for him. He wrote the Serenity Prayer. He was I went to Yale or Harvard.
The actual Serenity Prayer.
He wrote that thing. And then at the bottom of the hill was the Berkshire Theater. And there was it was a summer stock. Dude, I was hanging out with Goldie Hawn and Richard Dreyfuss, and it was nothing to me. It was just normal. All these actors from New York. And my friend, one of my friends I went to a school with was Tommy Gibson. Well, his dad wrote The Miracle Worker, the deaf, dumb, blind story about Helen Keller. And his best friend was Arthur Penn, who directed Golden Boy, which he wrote on Broadway. Arthur moves up to get a summer home. He directed Bonnie and Clyde with Faye Dunaway and Warren Beatty. He directed Little Big Man. I'm at Tommy's house, and they had money, and they had like a little cottage with Clifford Odets' whole book collection. This was like just whatever. It was normal to me. It was my turn. I'm probably 13 or 14 to steal a couple of beers down at the house, and I smoked a little doobie, and I'm a little high, and I go to get the beers. I'm like, and all of a sudden I hear Mrs. Gibson, Tommy's mom, who also helped invent hypnosis. She was like this heavy psychiatrist. She says, Kenny, these were liberal people. I guess that's to answer your question. These are a liberal community. Kenny, I'm like, oh, shit. I put the beers back in. She says, come in here and say hi to everybody. I'm like going in there like a little high, and it's Faye Dunaway, Mel Brooks, Anne Bancroft, and Frank Langella, all young. actors. Mel Brooks, the director. Anne Bancroft did. She was in.
What were they doing there?
They were visiting the Gibsons. They would come out of the city and come up.
This is like a creative vortex. This
exactly,
region.
exactly. Now the Boston Symphony Orchestra was 3 miles from my house.
Wow,
Norman
interesting.
Rockwell, the illustrator, I used to go to his house. My mom was just friends with him. I tell my brother, go watch him paint. He was a famous painter. If you don't know, he did all the covers for Saturday Evening Post, maybe.
Yeah.
And a pipe and illustrator, and I'd steal cigarettes out of these pewter dishes to give to my friend because I wanted him to like me more because his brother smoked cigarettes in the 7th grade. And my mom found those cigarettes in my house once and completely freaked out. Anyway, back to your question. My house was very liberal, very open, and the community was that way. And everybody, it was a community.
Awesome. Let's advance the story. Okay, at what point did you realize, wow, things are happening for me? Things are actually going on. Was there a point of that, or did it just dissolve into what it became?
Well, in high school, playing in bands, I thought things were happening because I was always in the best bands.
Oh, like professionally, where you were...
Okay, here's what happened. So it's time to go to college. You have to realize, post-World War II, my dad's dad came from Russia, fought his way out of Russia, beat ahead of the Russian Revolution. Basically, Dr. Zhivago, right before that whole thing happened, he comes over, another grandma from Romania, another grandma, my mom's mom from Russia. So these people, their whole thing was you go to America, you find there's a fame and fortune, and you go to college, my dad went to college, my mom went to college. So it was like, you're going to college. That's just what you did. So they asked, what do you want to major in? I said, music, but there was no school of rock. There was no mentor, there was no rule book. I didn't know how to make it in rock and roll. I lived in a little town.
What'd you do?
So I went 5 years of classical music. I had started studying with the percussionists from the Boston Symphony Orchestra because my little buddy Tommy Gibson, his technique was getting better. And I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm studying with Arthur Press from the Boston Symphony Orchestra. To make a long story short, I started studying with him. He kicked my ass. It was almost like whiplash, yelling at me, screaming. But it was on marimba, or vibes I had, timpani, snare drum. It wasn't drum set rock and roll. Thank God I did it. The universe... This is the type of thing where you take a lesson. This guy just kicked my ass. It was like a moment. These are life-changing moments, people. When he was up my butt the first day and made me feel like this, that was a pivotal moment where I could have gone, F you, I'm out of here. But something made me go, no, I've never been around this before. I need to learn from this guy. Life-changing moment because I stayed there. Those skills got me into the University of Massachusetts. I was not a great percussionist.
Because you were beat up by somebody that knew how to make you better.
And I learned enough to get into an okay school. Now, this is where it gets heavy. I go to school. The day I graduated high school, I started practicing 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, and playing 5 nights or 3 nights a week with a jazz trio with the piano player from the Alley Cats. The point is, I was going to go to school, and I was terrified, fearful, overwhelmed because I knew I was behind. Because I wasn't in the high school band, the concert band, the marching band. I'm like, that's not cool. What do I want to be around a squeaky clarinet when I'm playing Zeppelin in a club picking up chicks? Why would you do that? Playing some stupid, Meanwhile, I go to school, I'm behind in theory. You're taking music theory, you're taking music history, you're taking orchestra, you're taking small ensemble, you're taking conducting, sight singing, piano, and regular studies.
You were submerged.
I was submerged. But now check this out. Top 3 schools in the country in classical. Indiana University, biggest, baddest. Second, Juilliard, New York. Third, Eastman. Eastman is in Rochester, 5 miles up the road. Now I'm turning into the man that I am, but I didn't know. I said, Dad, I want to transfer to Eastman. Number 3 school in the country. It's right there. Even though I knew I wasn't the best. I was fighting. It wasn't a fight or flight mode. I'd completely turned into fight or fight. Fight or fight. Drives me up there, audition, get in, there's no room for me. They only take 14 students. I'm bummed. Come back to school. And I was talking to this kind of hot cellist, kind of because this is not, there's no supermodels in classical music. No offense, but at least I haven't met any. So anyway,
There weren't. Maybe there are now.
Not that I'm like hot or anything, but I'm just saying. So I said, hey, what are you doing this summer? She says, I'm going to Aspen. I went, what's Aspen? She says, Aspen is run by Juilliard, #2 school. It's a summer program of elite orchestra you have to audition for. I went, I'm going there to follow her and then transfer to Juilliard. So I send in a tape. You're supposed to send in a tape of three out of 4 areas: timpani, mallets, which is marimba vibes, multiple percussion, and snare drum. I did all 4. Didn't hear from anybody. Last day of school, I'm packing up. I got an Allman Brothers band I'm going to do for the summer and study with Arthur Press. It's going to be a great summer. I'm about to leave that day. Got my dad's station wagon with my stuff, and I went, oh, shit, I forgot my mail. I go back, bam, a letter from Aspen. You're accepted. 2 weeks, you got to be there, which in hindsight, now I realize I probably was an alternate because you don't invite somebody 2 weeks before. There's preparation, flights, and whatever. I go there. I am by far the worst percussionist there. I don't know how I got in. My tape, there's a lesson here. When you prepare an audition, do your best. Do it 50 times till you get it right, because that's how I got in. But my reading skills weren't great. My experience was very limited. These kids, they were all Juilliard prep. They were all the kids that were there in the percussion or in the orchestras were the best at wherever they came from.
But were they cool?
No. There wasn't one.
You were cool.
I was cool. There was not one cool mofo there. Guarantee you. The conductor, George Mester, I'll never forget him, just crushed me. Like we were doing a Tchaikovsky symphony, and you don't come in. I was playing cymbals, so the orchestra might be going with the cymbals. Well, I'm counting. The right thing would have done is to memorize the score and know 12 measures before you come in. The violins do this, the oboes do that. And not me. I'm going 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, up to hundreds and hundreds. And then you're going, wait, was that 293? Lost my place. So I wasn't using my ears. I was just using my brain.
Right.
Came in the wrong place, screamed at me, threw the baton at me, made fun of me, ridiculed me, made me count measures in front of the whole orchestra.
In front of everybody.
Completely. It would be verbal abuse.
Sounds like whiplash.
Exactly. And so he makes me count, and I'm like so embarrassed. And then I get to the spot, and then I stop. He says, screaming at me, why didn't you play? I says, you said count. And then he says, do it again. And at this point, then he says, forget. That was my summer. Now, the teacher who taught there, head of the percussion department at Indiana University. And I said to him, George Gaber, I want to go to Indiana University. He says, oh, come back in January and audition at Indiana University. I went, no, I'm going from Aspen to Indiana University. Life-changing moment. He said, no, come back. I said, listen, George, I'm going to Indiana University. And he went, well, all right. He says, to get into Indiana, you have to audition for 4 different departments. They happen to be all those like oboe, brass, French horn, singing, and percussion. They were all up there teaching from Indiana University. I auditioned, and now I'm in the #1 school of music. In 1 year, I went from an okay school to Indiana University, spent 4 years there, got my ass kicked, became one of the greatest percussionists there while I was there.
Now, was it all percussion, or do you play other instruments?
It was all percussion. And I played in the jazz band, but there was no drum set teacher. We're talking mallets and marimba and timpani. I actually, my senior recital, I saw Itzhak Perlman my freshman year at Indiana University do this ridiculous encore piece called The Introduction to Rondo Capriccioso by Camille Saint-Saëns, a violin concerto that's gorgeous but very virtuosic. But at the end, I said, that is the piece I'm going to play on my senior recital. You can play violin music on marimba. It lays right there. And I knew I had to pick a piece that was virtuosic for my senior recital because I'm a performance major. That was one of my 4 pieces. I did that, practiced that piece 2 hours a day, 365 days a year. crushed it. And my teacher said, after I did my recital, I want you to enter this contest, Concerto Contest. I won. That means I'm playing in an opera hall. At Indiana University, you had to play an opera twice a year. The opera hall there is bigger than the New York Met in New York. I'm telling you, this school is off the hook. I have to now, when you see an orchestra and you got a virtuoso violinist like Joshua Bell or Itzhak Perlman, they walk out. Well, they moved my marimba out front of stage. Conductor, 60-piece orchestra. I'm in a tuxedo, and I'm the violinist. Scared to death when I'm looking. I've never been up front.
Whoa, it's all on you.
I crushed it. And I should really post this. I'll send it to you. I did that when I was 22.
You have it.
I have it.
Well, that's awesome. Right, this is going from a short form interview into a longer form interview, but this is cool. This is great stuff. But I want to advance the story now. Okay, I want to start getting into. I'm sure people would. Well, I know we're going to have some questions that come into. Are you open to take a few questions from the listeners? Okay, this is my producer Celine. Celine's going to jump in with a question for you. From who's it from, Celine? Did you get that?
It's really hard. Can you say that so I can hear it a little bit more? It's about. You speak highly of your mother's support of your interests, and it's basically what advice would you have for parents to help facilitate? Oh, absolutely. No, I grew up in a family where I had amazing support. They may not have. Maybe they had wished. Maybe they never told me if they didn't want me to go to music because if they saw my passion for it, so they went. Okay, they let me do what I wanted to do. I mean, when my mom took me to, I could see she was concerned. When I went to Indiana University, she drove me there. She asked George Gaber, the teacher, she's looking at this
is he
school
any
and she's going, is Kenny going to make it? I mean, is he any good? George stopped. We were walking. He said, Mrs. Aronoff, ask that question in 10 years. In other words, how the hell do I know? It's up to him. And so my mom wanted the answer. I got a lot of support, but both of my parents, everybody, always.
So I think the question was directing more towards, were they just supportive of you or were they also encouraging you? Were they helping you?
They were encouraging and supportive, but they didn't. They paid for my lessons, but I went after everything. I went after the percussion, the Boston Symphony Orchestra. They didn't suggest it. And there's something powerful about that with a guy like me because it's more impactful that I find my way. And I think they knew that. If they were giving everything to me, then you go through life waiting for people to give you stuff.
Sure, of course.
Instead, I learned to go after stuff and saw that I got great results from going after. So my parents didn't do it for me, but they paid for my lessons. They made sure I could go to Indiana University. My dad told me for Aspen, you have to pay for that yourself. But
okay, so let's just let me deal with the elephant that's in my room anyway. Rock and rollers. You already talked about smoking a doob. Obviously, girls and your drinking and your. Where did the party dynamic come in? How did your parents deal with that, or did they, or didn't they? What was happening with that?
Well, I mean,
drugs back then.
Yeah, people were freaking out about marijuana. I mean, marijuana. It was marijuana and LSD.
Remember Reefer Madness?
Yeah,
right.
Dude, marijuana back then. I mean, dude, it was terrifying. I remember if you got caught with a just one joint, you were.
Oh,
you could go to jail. As a matter of fact, there was a time when I got this thing called hash, which is just a little bit of it. I called up my buddy on the soccer team.
Now, how old are you?
I'm probably senior in high school.
17, 18?
17, 18.
17, yeah.
I called up Tony. I said, Tony, man, I got some hash. It's like $5. He says, I'm going to pick you up in West Stockbridge, which is 3 miles away, and we're going to go to it's going to snow. We're going to go to Monument Mountain High School, and we're going to smoke some hash and spin donuts in the parking lot. That'll be wicked cool.
I remember spinning donuts.
So I pick him up, and there's only one straightaway because we're in the mountains, right, kind of heading toward the school. And we're in the middle of the straightaway, and all of a sudden, cop lights come on. State trooper. I'm like, Tony, there's a cop. She says,
And you're
"What's
both
that?"
stoned.
We're not stoned yet.
Oh.
I said, "Get the hash, eat it, and then take the tinfoil and put it down your pants." And we're eating. We're going eating the hash. It's like chewing gum, eating the hash, and we're eating them. Says, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, where's the foil? Where's the tinfoil? Where's the tinfoil? Oh my god, man, get it on! It's down your teeth." Cop went right by us. He wasn't coming after us.
All right. So what happened then?
So I said, "Tony, I'm taking you home." I spun the car around. I got him home. And then he shut the door and it went, "Goo, goo, 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 goo. Bye, 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 bye." I'm like, oh, no. And so it's starting to snow. And so I could have gone on the main pavement road home, which would have taken 10 minutes. Instead, I went, oh my God, I went through the mountain. Dirt road, gravel, at 5 miles an hour. If you've been in snow and
Sure.
not
Right
even
up.
if you're stoned, you hit the brights and the flakes are going.
Yeah. Right.
I'm like stoned. It took me 30 minutes to get home.
So how about it with your parents? Where were they with this? Were they?
Well, they were very, they were fearful. They were fearful. And my mom,
Did they talk to you about it? About drugs and drinking and all that?
Yeah, well, they didn't want us to do it. But I know my dad knew, he'd wait till 3 a.m. if we came home. We were in a band. We were playing in clubs and bars. And he thought, well, Kenny, and my brother was in the band with me. He felt, like, well, at least we're together. We'll be safe. If something happens, they're together. But he knew we were drinking and probably smoking. I mean, we started growing marijuana. It was the shittiest marijuana in the world, but we grew it. My mom would be weeding the plants that were in between the tomato plants. How come these don't have tomatoes on them? And we're going, they busted us. And then, you know what? We're idiots. The barn had no shades. My dad would be outside looking in. And I mean, he walked in one day and I didn't know he was in there. And my brother was I was watching my brother rehearse. And a whole bunch of us were there watching. And Tom, my brother, Tom, by the way, I don't smoke pot now. I can't stand it. I was never really a good pot. I just get too out of it.
Did you go down the hallucinogenic road? Did you do any of that?
I did it, when I was on tour with some people. They said, you got to try this. It always made my muscles ache. And
could you play?
Oh, never play stoned. I'd be like, no.
Now, this is all in your book, right?
I don't think that, no, because it's, it's sex, drums, rock and roll.
Oh, it's sex. I missed that.
That's all right.
All right, there it is. Correction, guys.
That's not bad, though, because the phrase is sex, drugs. I was never a druggy guy, I mean, I was around it, and I dabbled a little bit. But the bottom line is my career has always been more important than anything. I'll put that ahead of everything.
Well, you're the bottom. You're holding the whole band together.
It's basically my attitude. I'm a workaholic. I'm a hyperachiever.
But you're around guys that are probably playing gigs and they're pretty stoned out.
Oh yeah, I just can't do it.
Right.
I don't drink. I don't drink when I play. I don't smoke. I don't do nothing.
Well, is there that dynamic where you do hold the band together?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
I'm Tom Brady.
Right. There you go.
I mean, I'm executing. I got to adjust and adapt and problem solve. I do shows like Kennedy Center Honors. I get the script of the show. I have to know. I have every note written out. If you're playing with Sting and Dave Grohl and all these great, Chris Cornell, Lady Gaga, Bruno Mars, you don't make a mistake. And you only got a couple of days of rehearsals, and they're changing. I write everything out. I write who to count off. I have the tempos. I write when to count off. When Tom Hanks says this, you count off. You got to wait for those guys to tune their guitars. I know everything. I'm like, it's a musical director, producer.
Did you say Tom Hanks?
Oh yeah, I did that thing you do. And when I did Kennedy Center Honors, he was being honored.
What did you do in that thing you do?
The drums. I did the hit single. That's me. I did when I recorded it. Tom was there. That's when I met Tom. It's a great story because he was in character as the manager. And I walk in, and he goes, "Good job, Kenny, but I kind of wish you still had that beret on." I'm like, I look at the producer. Don was, what's he talking about? And Don's going, "Come here." He He saw the video that you did with Mellencamp called ROCK in the USA. I was up front. I was dressed like a beatnik and had a beret on. Tom saw that video and went, I got an idea for a movie. Wrote the script. He was inspired by our video. And I actually asked him that right in front of Spielberg, Herbie Hancock, Sting, and Springsteen after the after party at Kennedy Center Honors. And I said, is that really true? He said, yeah, man, I was inspired by that video. At least that's what he told me. And that's why he asked me, I missed that beret, that you're not wearing your beret. I'm like, it was from the video.
This could be like a multi-part series if we keep going down this road. We're gonna have to learn. It's so fascinating. It's all interesting, but my gosh, it's so complete. As we start approaching the runway, what's in the book? What is the book focusing on?
The concept is basically, a kid that just worked his ass off and is still working his ass off to be successful and stay successful.
Okay, now here's what I've heard so far. You needed to become really great. You wanted to associate with the best. You wanted to be around the best, and you trained and worked and were focused all the time.
Yes, yeah. It is okay. You have to. I'll try to break it down into 4 big things. You got to be a team player. It's not about me. It's about we. When I learned how. My job is to get a song on the radio to be number 1. It's not just about my drum part. And Keith Ferrazzi talks about in his book, Leading Without Authority, he talks about co-elevation. Co-elevation is I need you. I really, from the bottom of my heart, want you to be great so that we are great.
Right.
If I'm great and the guitar player and the bass player aren't great, song doesn't make the record. I figured that out. So I'm a team player. Connecting, communicating, and collaborating. I walk into a studio on Monday, and I'm with Bonnie Raitt, B.B. King. Tuesday, I'm with Elton John. I got to walk up to Elton John and immediately connect with him, start talking to him, so that we can play. How are we going to play music and it's only within 45 minutes? So I learned it was natural for me, but it's very important to be able to connect, communicate, and collaborate. 2, you got to be creative and innovative. And always, and everybody has the ability to be creative and innovative. I came up with a system for that, but we won't get in that now. 3, you have to be able to always be getting better. I still practice. Just because you made it doesn't mean you're set for life. Not at all. The day that Jack and Diane went to number 1, which was a Mellencamp, his biggest hit single, which made him millions, which means I did my job. The day that came out and became number 1, I celebrated for 2 seconds and went into a fearful mode. How can I do this again? Can I do this again? How do you do it again? That's where my head was at. It's always like, get a touchdown, give me the ball again. Touchdown, give me the ball again.
What do you think made that particular song the hit it became?
Well, let's
behind the scenes. Give us some juice.
Well, I mean, the song wasn't even on the record. And then I programmed the drum part. It was a great song, but we didn't know how to arrange it. We were young. So I walk in the studio, and somebody's got this metal box, the producer, and I went, what is that? He says, the Lin 1 drum machine. I'm like, drum machine? That replaces drummers. So I grabbed the box, another life-changing moment. I grabbed the box, and I programmed this drum machine. It was pretty much what I was already playing on the drum set. The idea was, it had 8 outputs, and you bring it up on the tape, and you could mix it. So you bring in some elements and kind of build the song. But by the time we got to the second chorus, it was boring. So then John had the idea, let's bring Kenny in and have a big drum break. So long story short, I come up with that drum break right there on the spot.
Give it to us on your lap.
So let it rock, so let it roll. Let the Bible belt come, save your soul. So it's one of the most air drum solos on pop radio ever. Phil Collins is singing "Air in the Air Tonight" or whatever it's called. And so that song was off the record. Now it's on the record, and that became John's biggest hit single ever. So one could say, Kenny saved the day.
Well, John actually, he does say that he gives you high creds to the band's overall success. That's a quote from John Mellencamp.
Well, you know what? that's fair enough. You know what? After I did that, check this out. This is the way it went down. For the next 15 years, John would write a song, acoustic guitar, play it twice, and then look at me and go, "What do you got?" Think about it. He was a smart guy. I had already made him millions of dollars, which is my job, to make a hit single. That's it. My job is to get a hit single for that guy, or for Sting, or for whoever I'm in the studio with. That's my job. It's not about me. It's about we. So John would look to me for direction, and I kept coming up with ideas. Like, I'll give you an example. Crumbling Down. Album's done. We've got 2 Grammys for American Fool with Jack and Diane, Hurt So Good. Next album has got Pink Houses, the Authorities song. And he says, the album's done, it's mixed. He calls us, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm practicing." He says, "I'm coming over. I just wrote a new song. It's going to be the first single on the album." I'm like, "John, the record's done." See, he was a fighter too. He and I were equally matched. He was Bill Belichick. I'm Tom Brady.
Did you guys get along?
Not great, but, we pushed each other hard, real hard. We were competitive. He was a super jock, too. Fastest white man I've ever seen in my life when we played football. We had the MFL, Mellencamp Football League, or Mandatory Football League. We played hard. So anyway, John comes over and says, "This is a hit single. Don't friggin' mess this up." He didn't say friggin', of course. He said, "F." So I'm sitting there going, crapping in my pants. He goes, "Dun, dun, 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 dun." I'm like, that's cool. But he's only this far from me in my little rental house, so I don't want to do the wrong thing. So you always think of the obvious. That's the technique I learned. Think of the obvious while he's playing. What would be obvious? Doosh, ga, doo, doo, ga. I've done that. Doosh, ga, goo, doo, ga. You come up with obvious things so that when he says, "What do you got?" you have an answer. You have something to get the dialogue going. Second thing I think is, what's a little bit out of, not as obvious. Embellish the obvious. And embellish it more, and then think out of the box. I'd say this was number 3. I embellished the obvious a little bit more. I eventually I tried, well, maybe I'll go with his, on the floor tom, boom, boom, ba, boom, 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 bum. Nah, it's a little too powwow. Then I went to the kick drum, on the hi-hat. Usually you go, I didn't do the hi-hat. I just went kick drum, snare drum, boom, boom, ba, boom, 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 ba, boom, boom, ba, on the hi-hat. Some people are no damn good. And John didn't say anything, which means he liked it. That's what, when he didn't say anything,
right.
I'd always say,
"Keep going."
That sucks. So from there, I could build the drum part. See, I'm all about developing a song, especially when it comes to hit songs like that. You develop, because from there I went to the pre-chorus. Went on, you got it, the hi-hat, you got on the walls and come tumbling down when the wall. So I built to the choruses, which is supposed to be the biggest part of the song. And so John kept coming to me for ideas. So that makes sense that he would say that.
Yeah, I'd say so. Also, you've got John Fogerty said you were the greatest in the world.
Well, I was the 30th drummer after he had spent 10 years making a record. Spent 5 years getting ready to make Blue Moon Swamp, and then he spent 5 years recording it, and I was the last 30th drummer at the end of 5 years. And after one day of recording, because I'm a workhorse and he's a workhorse, he went, "You're the drummer I've been looking for my whole life." And he says, "Would you come back tomorrow?" I went, "Are you kidding me?" I was like listening to Creedence when I was like a teenager, and now I'm playing with him.
Look at that.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and then we have here something interesting here. John Bon Jovi said that you're actually one of his favorites, but what I'm noticing just in these statements that I'm reading, they're all John's.
Yeah, I know.
Is there something to that?
I know, isn't that weird?
John, you got John Lennon, you got John
Jovi,
Elton John. I mean, what the heck?
Glenn Johns, the producer I work with, one of the greatest producers ever.
There's something else going on there. Kenny, listen, we can keep going and going, but we're gonna have to land this bird. So I just have a couple questions for you, and then I'm gonna open it up back to you. You're obviously you're this force of nature with this energy, and the word energy has come up quite a bit with you. Where is it that you're getting your energy? What is energy to you?
Well, I speak about this as healthy life is a wealthy life, or a wealthy life is a healthy life. So, obviously, there's 8 things I'll try to say. Lifting weights, keep your immune system up, hormones, strength.
So you lift on a regular basis?
Yeah, I'm really down right now. I decided to take a week off. This is me way down. But then when I don't lift, I eat a different way. I eat less, eat more plant-based. But I'm more of a protein guy. I definitely eat, meat. But when you're lifting, you gotta feed yourself the muscles. Otherwise, the muscles need it. Your body's craving. My blood type is definitely chicken, fish, and some red meat. So second thing is cardio. Only way you can exercise the heart is by cardio. That also builds your immune system up and gives you endurance.
How do you do your cardio besides drumming?
Yeah, drumming is, but I have a pre-core machine. I blew my knee out playing soccer, so I can't run anymore. But pre-core, a bike, but I like the elliptical thing.
Yeah,
So, and then third thing is flexibility, which could be stretching, yoga. So now you got strength, endurance, flexibility, diet. Obviously, plant-based is better, but I have to eat meat, so but there's a lot of vegetables and fruit. I have a whole recipes and diet. We don't have to get into that. Supplements. I'm big on supplements because I push myself hard.
Like what? What do you consume?
Well,
what happens? What'd you eat this morning when you woke up?
Well, today, usually I have a very, very healthy, gluten-free, inflammation-free protein powder that one of my doctors developed.
You want to share the name?
Damn it, I forget the name. It's Sherpa, Dr. Rafalock's his name. Can't remember the product.
But it's a plant-based protein.
No, it's, I don't think
collagen?
Wait a minute, what is it? Is it plant-based? It might be way in there. I'm not sure. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay. So how many grams? You did a couple scoops?
I'll take a big scoop, whatever it says.
Okay.
Scoop, then I put a coconut milk, no sugar, a cup of blueberries, so you get some sugar, natural sugar. Put a scoop of peanut almond butter or a whole bunch of nuts. I'm a nut freak. So the fat and sugar will curtail your desire to eat. You get sugar and fat, and that'll satisfy you. Then I put in green food, super green food.
Right.
And then I put in, very important, is the fish oil, which this doctor makes.
Right.
And the fish oil is good for about 30 different things.
Yeah, you got to have it.
I do that. And that's usually what I do. But what I do is I start in the morning. I should back up. My new diet is I wake up, have squeezed lemon in water. 30 minutes later, I have a glass of celery juice. Celery juice takes inflammation down. Most diseases are the result of inflammation. It's a big thing right now. But inflammation, your body, it could be mental and physical. You can create your stress and where your injuries get manifested in inflammation in different parts of your body. So the celery juice.
Are you buying it or you?
I make it.
You're making.
And you don't mix it with anything. No carrot juice. No nothing. Just straight celery.
Right.
30 minutes later, I usually have that protein shake. But today it was time to go 2 eggs on very, very healthy non-gluten bread. I did cheat. I had some butter. Try to stay away from dairy, and then, bam, 3 cups of espresso, and then
there you go, guys.
And there's still more to come, folks. So come by my studio, and you'll see smoke coming out of my room.
All right, well, let's finish this off. What's going to happen next?
Then the supplements. So I have a Pure, Pure, Ultra Nutrient, one of the greatest multiple vitamins you can get for men and women. Ultra Nutrient. Company's called Pure.
Sure.
And I get vitamin D from there. Vitamin D, huge for your immune system. I take 10,000 milligrams a day. I take zinc. By the way, I get blood work every year, and we study this.
Right.
Very, very accurately. And if something's not right, which is rare, then we do another test in 2 months. So I'm rocking. So then I take the fish oil, like I said. I take a non-inflammation thing. I don't even take extra C now because I get plenty there. What else do I take? I forget. I take quercetin. Because of the pandemic, I started taking quercetin in the morning, up my vitamin D and zinc I was already doing. Those 3 things are great with the lemon juice to fight off all viruses.
Good for you.
So then, number 5 is water. 98% of your body, every organ in your body needs water. You could die in 3 days without water. You can live 40 days without food. Water, very important. I don't drink enough of it. That's 6. 7 is meditation, which I'm doing this incredible new thing. It's a breath work. Breath work, Wim Hof. You guys look up Wim Hof.
There you go.
WIMHOFF.
Mhm.
Breath work will release stress and trauma. Everybody has trauma in them. That also creates inflammation. The breath work, I do 11 minutes of Wim Hof, goes into a heart-mind meditation thing that goes into just a regular meditation. 26 minutes, that's how I start my day. I come out of bed like rocking. And then I hit the lemon juice. All right, so, but meditation will make you sicker faster than anything. So we have to address this. The reason why it works for me, because I'm so high energy, that doing breath work is something physical. I'm doing something that, what's his name, out of metal. You take 2 breaths. So you go breath with the diaphragm, breath in the chest, then you let it out. This literally clears out all kinds of stress and trauma.
Neil, I think that's Neil's stuff. Is that
Neil? Yeah. Neil Cannon, buddy man. I combined 2. I took, I'm spacing his name out. I just did a class with this guy. Neil introduced me to this guy, and I took his breath technique and applied it to Wim Hof's breath technique. Wim Hof is just in and out. 30 times, then you hold your breath for 15 seconds. You do this 3 times, and you will be rocking. If you're feeling a little bit down, this will wake you up. It's almost like someone just shakes you, and then says, go. All right, the last component of my 8 steps is sleep, which I suck at. You want to get 7 to 8 hours because that's the only time your brain and body will repair. And it's also where your brain clears out gray matter. So these are my 8 steps. That's what I talk about health. But I have to say, man, I'm lucky that I have good DNA.
Finish the day. What are you going to eat? How are you going to end it?
So I'm going to I'll have salad with meat, like chicken on it. I'm going to have nuts. If I have a carb craving, might be potatoes. If I want to cheat, it'll be potato chips. The reason why I say potatoes, because that's non-grains. Grains create inflammation. So potato chips is not a grain. Potatoes is not a grain. That's me cheating. And then tonight I just started, I created a beef stew. It's some meat, but a lot of vegetables and potatoes in a crock pot.
Do you cook all this?
Huh?
Do you cook all this?
I did that one.
Yeah?
My wife is a great cook.
Okay.
But I did all that one, and right now I'm not drinking anything at all. I'm just
no alcohol.
Not right now. I mean, I love whiskey and I love wine, but I'm not. I'm just taking a breather on it.
Got it.
Yeah.
Boy, I tell you, we got a lot more to find out about your marriage and your kids and all that, but we're going to have to end this thing.
Yeah.
So, Kenny, this has been fantastic.
We'll do a part 2, man.
Would you do a part 2?
Part 2.
All right, we're going to bring Kenny back. If you guys write into the chat a little bit about if you'd like to hear a part 2 as well with Kenny, and we're gonna bring Kenny back for a part 2.
And I know I'm a big talker. We'll answer more questions next time.
Yeah, we'll answer questions. We'll get a little bit in your family, and we'll dive a little bit further into some of these like famous heavy-duty superstars and some crazy stuff you've experienced. What's some wacky things that have went on? What's been the highlight? I'd love to hear all about that. We're going to bring you back, Kenny.
Dude, I've experienced a lot.
We know.
And survived.
I think we know. All right, here's what I wanted. I have one last question for you.
Yeah.
Okay? And I like to ask all my guests this question. So here it is. You're a pretty influential guy, but we're in a situation now, we're making this up, that you are allowed one Instagram post that magically is going to hit everyone in the world. If you could create an IG post that would do just that, what would be the picture and what would it say underneath it?
It'd be a picture of me like this. And what it would say under it is that live your life from your purpose. In other words, it's not up here, it's here. Realize what your purpose in life is, deep in your heart and your soul, and live by that. Because when you do live by that, you're going to be unstoppable, you're going to be undeniable, and you're going to be completely authentic. Nobody can argue who you are. And who you are is here. It ain't up here. So realize your purpose and go after it. And you'll be unstoppable, undeniable, and you will be authentic. And you'll be bigger than that, you'll be happy, and the ripple effect of your happiness and joy will influence everybody around you.
Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, Kenny Aronoff. Kenny,
Thank you.
thanks so much, my brother. Awesome having you. I look forward to the part 2, and I'm sure the rest of everyone else would also like to have you
I'll
back.
be back. I'm sorry I talk a lot. There's so many stories, and you haven't even heard the great ones.
Hey, I wish you, your family, your friends, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. And everybody, stay safe. Guys, this has been another special episode of the Performance Zone, PZTV. If you're watching this live, thank you. We will get to your questions. Check out the show notes. You can see this episode at a later date also on our Facebook page, as well as our IGTV page, Claybank Studio International. And also, if you'd like to see this episode along with other episodes, you can check it all out at the claybankstudio.com website. You'll see the PZTV button. Click it there, and you'll see our latest episodes for your viewing. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. This episode has been brought to you by the ACT course, the art, craft, and technicalities of on-camera performing. Check it out. It's on the website. We want to thank you for tuning in. Kenny, thank you. Until next time, everybody, be safe.